What would you like the power to do? Bank of America.
Is that where we are? Is the House literally on fire? And Sarah, I'll start with you. Does it feel like we're acting like the House is on fire with regard to educational and income outcomes?
Well, first, if I wanted to be petty, I would say the House might be on fire, but the Senate is not. However, in the spirit of civility and collaboration, trust me, I got them all day. But in honest, I don't think that the House is necessarily on fire. I think the House is unfocused. You know, I've spent most of my professional life in the college access space and in the policy space. And what I can tell you is I've dedicated my life to making sure that first-generation college students like me actually had a seat at the table. And when we look at our policy makers, long before I was in the legislature, think the Granholm years, the Snyder years, now in the Whitmer administration, the pendulum keeps swinging. We go from everyone needs to go to a four-year institution, or no one needs a college or a skilled trade, right? We keep going back and forth without the amount of focus we really need. I was there when we would compare ourselves to Massachusetts, then it was Tennessee, now it's Mississippi. The reality is this stuff isn't that hard if we have policymakers, education leaders, community organizers, and yes, even students at the table to create the policy initiatives that we know actually work, which is more accountability, persistence, alignment, as you mentioned, but ultimately, we have to be focused around one big goal. And I was excited when this governor did just that. She declared that in order for us to meet our labor market demands, let's have a goal of 60% of our people getting an additional piece of paper after high school by the year 2030. That has focused our resources, our policy initiatives, and what I know we're going to talk about today is how do we take that big goal and focus us into the next generation and the next era of leadership. So we're not on fire, we're just lacking focus.
Yeah. So Jeff, if we roll with the metaphor that maybe it's on fire, I feel like BLM over the years has been maybe not the fire department, but certainly the one ringing the bell, right? Saying, there's smoke and there's some flame over there. We ought to respond to it. I want to have you talk over that time. I know you haven't been at BLM that whole time, but I can think back to 2011 or 2012 reports from BLM about how bad things were with education, with incomes, and setting these really inspiring goals about how we could get to a better place. The dawn of the Snyder administration, I felt like was this moment of alignment about those things. And here we are, 15 years later, and things are worse. What could be different this time? What could we do that we didn't do that last time? I heard what you were saying when you were speaking, but what are the specific things that make this not the same old alarm that we've been hearing?
Yeah, and certainly, I've been at Business Leaders for Michigan now for 5 years, and the data tells us that we did make progress after the Great Recession, right? We were 50th in many categories in the Great Recession on, a huge number of business fundamentals, of how you do growth, of how individuals are succeeding in the economy, and we have come up from that. But I think the challenge is that many of our fundamentals need to be addressed. And so I'll give you another analogy that we talk about a lot, which is it's maybe not the house is on fire, but it's been a slow boil, right? And we've kind of seen ourselves slide backwards. It's hard to look at and step back. And part of the purpose of the data presentation I just made was to look at 25 years of the slide backwards, right, on education. In any one year, you're not seeing that, right? It's hard to tell you've had a huge difference. In any one district, it's hard to tell because I guarantee, there are good teachers, there are good administrators, people are getting a lot of the supports they need in the schools, but as we look back, as we compare with other districts, we're falling behind. So the urgency that we need to have in this year, right, the bell alarm ringing that we have to have is, we are now a bottom 10 state for education. Mississippi is a top 10 state in literacy. So the states that we always said, oh, well, they're never going to compete with us. We're always going to be better with them. They have said enough, and they're changing trajectory. We have not been able to get those clear goals, as Senator Anthony said, that we align both parties with, right? That can sustain a strategy for 10 years. Yeah. That's been our challenge.
Yeah. Greg, I know the Chamber does a lot of work with your leadership, really, looking at education in Michigan and sounding the alarm when it's appropriate. I'm really curious, though, for you, what stands out about this moment and the opportunity that we might have to go in a different direction. What are you seeing in the work that you guys do in K-12 especially?
Well, I've been at this a long time and we haven't fixed it, so I guess it's my fault. Interestingly, so we just put out our State of Education and Talent Report, and we also documented this fall in per capita income. And what was interesting is, so it's been falling, as Jeff said, this didn't happen overnight. And as we've said, hey, now we've gone from 34th to 38th in per capita income. People kind of shrugged. When we hit 40, somehow round numbers seem to capture people's imagination. And so when we released the report back in November, we did some interviews. People that is resonating with people. When people understand there's a problem, I think it was a wake-up call. So 40th in per capita income resonates in a way maybe 37th doesn't. But we also know there's no path back to 18th or 16th or where we were in 2000 or 1999 without being highly educated. If you stack up states or regions and rank them by their per capita income, that's what their post-secondary attainment rate is. There is no such thing as a state that is not highly educated or a region that's not highly educated that is prosperous. So we have a challenge ahead of ourselves. We hear a lot this debate about whether people should focus on CTE and skilled trades or college. One of the things we put out in our report is we look back 10 years. What happened to students all over Metro Detroit, not just the city of Detroit, Metro-wide? There were 100 ninth graders 10 years ago. 10 years later, so 4 years of high school and 6 years after high school, an opportunity to complete some kind of education, only 35 of those 100 have completed any kind of formal post-secondary education. So, we're already missing 2/3 of, the potential workforce, the talent pool. So rather than debate about more skilled trades, more higher ed, it's more of everything.
Yeah. Don, you see this from the vantage point of a college campus right here in the city of Detroit. I'm really curious what you see among the students that you have there at U of D, and again, what the opportunity is. What is it that we're missing in terms of what we could be doing that we haven't that turns us in a different direction?
Sure. I think with us, I would say we're very different from most of my colleagues. I like saying that University of Detroit Mercy is playing offense, and many of my colleagues are playing defense. Where most of my colleagues see challenge after challenge, I see a lot of opportunities. And I think the only thing that stands in the way of that is your imagination. And we're very entrepreneurial, very innovative. We've had 3 consecutive years of record new student enrollments, the largest since U of D merged with Mercy in 1990. Winter over last year, we're up another 360 or so students. Our brand awareness has increased significantly, but not only in Southeast Michigan, throughout the state, throughout the region, throughout the country. And we see that with outcomes-based rankings. With the Wall Street Journal, there's 5,200 college campuses in the country. In the last 3 years, we went from number 52 in the country, number 43 this year. We're number 36 in the nation. Number 2 Catholic University in the Midwest, number 3 Catholic University out of 200 in the nation. We're also ranked number 22 on best value of all national universities on return on investment. We're ranked in the top 220 or so research universities by Carnegie and ACE, and we're also ranked one of the top 50 colleges or universities that educate the largest number of first-generation students. So of the 6,000 students at my university, 3, and we're an urban university, 3 within the city, McNichols, Law, and Jefferson, and then Dental and Corktown, and we opened our first suburban campus for our optometry school out in Novi. But half of our students are first gen, half of the students are Pell eligible, and I was telling Greg, for this current year, based on our Titan Edge program, about 40% of the total number of undergrads are going tuition free, as a combination of the federal and state aid that they bring, plus the merit need-based financial aid that U of D is actually providing to them. And so, again, I think you're only limited by your imagination, and we've gotten very aggressive in creating partnerships and pathways for things that we want to be involved in.
You know, in large part,
ahead,
because of the work of people like Senator Anthony, because of the work of university leaders, tuition is not a barrier to higher education at this point anywhere in Michigan.
Correct.
The Michigan Reconnect program gives anybody over the age of 25 without a degree a free college tuition at any community college, a skills certificate, the Michigan Achievement Scholarship, Pell eligibility. Tuition is not the barrier that I think many people believe.
Yeah. And just to build on it, that's a recent development.
Yeah.
So, you know, we sometimes kind of focus on everything that we get wrong in Michigan and our problems, but, you know, thanks to Senator Anthony's leadership, the governor, and bipartisan support, we passed those financial supports for students. Yeah. So yeah, we've, 40% at UD Mercy, 50% at Oakland University and U of M Dearborn, 60% at Wayne State University, and basically free community college in Michigan. Almost nobody knows that.
Right.
We do a lot of public polling, focus groups, and we ask people about, the cost of higher ed. They have no idea. And we've tended to kind of tout those programs with dollar figures. So we'll say, you fill out these forms and you could get up to $25,000 to go to college, which sounds like a lot, but it lacks context for people who don't know what the real costs are. I think beginning to communicate in a way that 50% of our incoming freshmen go tuition free, that's a message that resonates. So I think we need to really double down on that kind of communication. Say, hey, we've tackled a lot of the cost problem. Now we have to communicate that there are solutions available.
And of course, Jeff, continue to draw that connection between education and income.
That's right.
We've got to make sure that people know about what's available and the opportunity, but then also that they stay here and get jobs and earn at a level that moves that income up. That's the other piece of this that we haven't been great at.
We haven't. I mean, it's a virtuous cycle, right? Jobs are moving to where talent is, and talent is moving to where jobs are.
Right.
And those high-wage jobs need to be created here. We need a well-functioning economic development system to help us be able to have those here, to cement them here. We need to keep our talent here. I'll give you an example, something I was very surprised at when I first started talking to the CEOs across the state that are on my board. They're generally about 100 board members that we have, and they really influence about 40% of our state's economy. I talked to multiple ones of them who said, I'm trying to recruit this person from out of state to come in and be an executive at my company. But they go to their local schools and they see that the kids there are 2 to 3 years behind where their kids are today in another state's K through 12 system. And they said, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to bridge that gap?
Right.
So it's not just about educating our own residents and making sure that they have the talent that's necessary to grab those high-paying jobs, to help those high-paying jobs be created here. It's about bringing people to the state as well.
Yeah. Senator, I want to give you a chance. You've been in Lansing for a little bit. I want you to talk about the institutional barriers in Lansing to the progress here, not the partisan. We talk about the partisan ones all the time, right? And look, in the last 20 years, we've had Democratic and Republican governors. We're about to elect another one. Who knows what party they might be of? But it seems to me that it's the structure of things in Lansing that often is what gets in the way of consistency and consistent outcomes.
And I will say my claim to fame has been that partisanship hasn't been a barrier to getting good things done. We talk about the Reconnect scholarship program. That was myself and Representative Ben Frederick, who was on the other side of the aisle, but we agreed that we're at a crisis. And if we can use our precious financial resources as a state to actually move the needle on college access and attainment, we should do that, regardless of if we're on the Republican or Democratic side. I think in this moment, what we really need is folks to know about these scholarships and grant opportunities, and then demand more from elected officials, regardless of the political party. You know, one of the things that's on the top of my mind is whoever our governor is, whoever our legislative leaders end up being, if they don't own the Reconnect scholarship, if they don't own the Michigan Achievement Scholarship, will they then try to rebrand it, to reshape it into something else? And who gets left behind is the student or the parent trying to figure out what the next flavor of the month or year is. The reality is that, again, that consistency is something that the people are demanding, but they need to demand it from their elected officials. Because as you know, politicians tend to want to brand things and say, this is my thing. I remember No Worker Left Behind and shovel-ready projects and the Marshall Plan for talent, right? I mean, we could all spit these out until we're blue in the face. But the reality is who gets left behind, who falls through the cracks, are students. And when I look at things through a racial equity lens, we know who gets left behind. Right. It's Black and brown young people. It's young people who would be first in their family to go to college or are from low-income families. So our people deserve more, but they have to remind both the current lawmakers, the current governor, and also the incoming that this is a priority. The brand doesn't need to change, but the investment needs to be consistent.
Don, you talked about playing offense instead of defense. I wonder if you can talk a little about what you think allows you to do that at U of D, and how that could apply in other places. How can others be doing, I guess, what you're doing?
Sure. I think first it starts with I have an incredibly supportive board that are willing to take risk and actually support. We have a great leadership team. The faculty and the staff are very innovative. The students who come to University of Detroit Mercy, they come because most of them are wanting to earn a professional degree. So 8 of our 10 schools and colleges lead to a terminal professional degree. And so, I mean, many people in the audience here, if they go to their dentist, it's one of our alums. Or, you know, lawyers, probably one of our law school. We have the most judges sitting. Optometry, nursing. We have almost 1,800 students in allied health fields. And so we're not afraid to partner with kind of non-traditional. So like we have partnerships with lots and lots of nonprofits. And like in the healthcare space, we work with all the major healthcare systems, but Trinity Health is our main partner because that's the religious sponsor of the Sisters of Mercy is Trinity Health. They're the second largest Catholic healthcare system in the world. So we do that locally, but we're in a major initiative with them in Grand Rapids, which is really a healthcare town. But we're also willing, like we have a major partnership with Delta Dental, a for-profit. We opened an out-of-state branch campus in Vermont because there was a need for dental there because there was a 20-month wait if you moved there to see a dentist. So we actually implemented a franchise model to do that. And then, but to Jeff's point, I would also say, you know, the majority of our students come from Michigan. And 89% of them stay here and work here. Right. So we're celebrating our 150th birthday next year, our sesquicentennial. Of those 120-something thousand alums, currently there are about 60,000 in Michigan, most in Southeast. And so we also, because we have so many professional degree programs, and many of them are accelerated, the student can graduate in 3 years for the undergrad, 6 or 7 years for a law, dental, optometry, and go on and on. But they pay really high-paying jobs. And so starting out, based on the recent study by Georgetown's Center for Labor Statistics, we're in the top 9% in the nation for salaries 1 year, 3 year, 10, 20, 30 years out. And to Greg's point about the salary differential of the high school diploma versus college, if you graduated from Detroit Mercy last May in 2025, in the first 30 years, your degree was worth an additional $2.5 million, which was 3 times the national average for that. And so I think we do a good job in actually branding ourselves of the type of institution we are. And students come and we provide opportunities for the first gen, for the mission, and they know they're going to get a great education, they're going to get the values, and they know because 100% of our students have either a paid internship, co-op, et cetera, most of them already have a job before they even graduate. Last year was 98% had a job on graduation day.
I want to talk about higher ed investment on the back of what Don's saying. I mean, that's another place that we have slipped down the scale. Senator, that is a primary issue in the legislature and in the governor's office. How do we turn that around?
It's difficult. When you look at what we have been investing, we're so far behind. I mean, when there has been this narrative, this picture that has been painted that our four-year institutions, our institutions of higher learning, are these elite places that only the select few can go, and not engines of workforce development and the great thinkers and the researchers that will solve our great problems. We have a huge problem in just communicating why this is a great return on investment, while these institutions are just jewels. There are some states across the country that look at our public universities and our community college system and salivate over what we have. And yet there's oftentimes this rift, sometimes in partisan lines, but not always, that says college is no longer worth it. College is only for a select few. That, sure, there's some folks who are wealthy and well-connected that can send their kids, but these other kids should go somewhere else. And I think that what you've seen is the money follow that mindset. We are so far behind in what we should be investing, but what I always say when I'm going around talking to people about the state budget is that budgets are moral documents. You can tell me what you care about, but show me the money. And in rooms that I'm talking to business folks, it's not just a moral document, it's a strategic document. If we want to suck less, because that's basically, your presentation is we just got to do better, we have to invest differently.
We want to lead.
We want to lead. I didn't catch the whole presentation. Okay, that was it. But if we want to be leading, if we don't want to be at the bottom 10, but we want to be leading this nation, and I think that our people, our children, our workers are top tier, but our systems and our investments don't reflect that. So if we want that, show us the money.
Jeff, what about, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's really important for us, one of the things, when Dr. Wright was here in this room talking to a group of business leaders, political leaders, we got her around to talk to every gubernatorial candidate that we could capture, that we got her to talk to the governor, we had her talk to media about, the example in Mississippi, and one story she kept telling over and over again is Haley Barbour, the former governor of Mississippi, said to her, Dr. Wright, you have talked more about outcomes than inputs than any person I know in government. So it is really important we have the inputs, but it is really important that we know the outputs we are trying to drive and that we celebrate success and that success breeds success. I mean, with what you said, Senator, on the Reconnect program, it worries me every day that we're not going to have the outputs, the outcomes to justify keeping that program in place beyond the people who put it in place in office. So how do we make sure that we are, every year, we're getting better, we have a target and we're showing how we're going to reach that target, and that the dollars that we put into it are well spent. When I was workforce development director here in the city of Detroit, I learned very quickly, if you ask for a certain amount of money, you're probably not going to get it. If you show people success, they want to be part of that success, and the money will appear. Once you get that first win, people want to be a part of it.
Go ahead.
So we have an opportunity to invest in something that works. We've made a lot of progress in making higher ed more affordable, but we also know that there's a psychological barrier that a lot of students face, particularly first-gen students that question as they finish high school, do I belong in college? Is it for me? How do I even go about it? One of the things that works really well across the country is dual enrollment. So opportunities for students to earn college credit while they're in high school, with their high school having a partnership with a higher ed institution. And so if you look at students who take advantage of dual enrollment, first generation students, far more likely to enroll in college, far more likely to complete college than students that don't. Michigan students are way behind in terms of how many take advantage. It's about 7% of our high school graduates graduate with some kind of dual enrolled credit. Indiana, that number's in the 40s.
Oh, wow.
It's partly because Michigan has a huge financial disincentive for high schools to make that opportunity available, because if you're a high school and you offer that to your students, you have to pay the full tuition for those students.
Yeah.
In states where more students take advantage of it, the state has a funding mechanism that does not put the burden on the high school.
Yeah.
So that's something that we and a lot of other stakeholders are talking to the legislature about right now. How do we expand that? It's another way to create more pathways for those students into higher ed.
Yeah. We've got about a minute left, so lightning round. One thing that the person who's elected governor in November can do that you think would just move things, even in a small way, in the right direction? What would be on the top of your list? Senator?
Continue to fund Reconnect.
I'm going to give you two things because I can't follow directions.
All right.
First, implement that high standard for a high school diploma. What do we want high school to actually be? And then adopt the Michigan miracle of how we're going to tackle literacy.
Like Mississippi.
Like
and
Mississippi,
Maryland.
exactly.
Go ahead.
Like relentless communication around the value of higher education and that it's affordable.
Don?
And I was on a call with Lansing about this topic yesterday during lunch, and what we talked about was making sure that we continue to fund the maximum state aid and also to address the dual credit issue, because other states, to Greg's point, have solved this problem. I still can't believe in Michigan that we're charging that amount when all of those other state models are out there. And so there's a disincentive for the dual credit. Like, we have 16 partners, but we should have 40 or 50 at my university. But there's a disincentive.
Yeah. Look at that. I'm going to put you guys on TV. You hit the number right where you were supposed to. All right. Thanks to all of you for being here and the great conversation.
Great. Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks.